Well, reaching out and knocking on the doors and talking to people, I feel that people really don't understand the question. Number one, we'll take away $12.9 billion of local aid, and the first thing that has to be paid is the schools. And with the foundation budget of schooling, and such that the towns of Hopkinton, Holliston, and Medway, we supersede the foundation, the budget foundation. And education is mandatory. When we supersede that, we're talking about the increase in real estate taxes, the deletion of public safety, such as fire, police departments, and even the DPW. People understand this. People do not want this. However, if it passes, I will work hard for what the constituents of the 8th Middlesex want, and will work diligently to try to restore and find other mechanisms, such as resort casinos, for monies from resort casinos for local funding. And my opponents just talked about estimates. And these estimates that Ms. Dykema and Mr. Haley here has talked about, these estimates were supported by two major studies done by professional groups for the governor and for the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
One final question here. We'll start with Dan on this. Do you support the reforms in the state requirements for police details on construction projects introduced by Governor Patrick? Should cities and towns in your district revise contracts and policies requiring police details?
I do support those reforms. I don't think they go far enough, and I do think that cities and towns should revise their regulations in a common sense way. I think that the rhetoric on this issue, as on most contentious issues, gets blown way out of proportion in the argument. The notion that the lack of a police officer at every road project or line painting or whatever on the side of the road will lead to public safety issues, I think that's obviously belied by the fact that we're the only state in the union that has a police officer in all those situations. By the same token, a lot of people act as though it's simply outrageous that police officers value that income. And of course it isn't. It's a significant part right now of the income for a lot of police officers who work very hard. They're public servants. They're valued members of the community. And so, to my mind, we're missing a piece in this argument, and we ought to be revising the rules such that we don't have mandatory flagmen at every traffic incident, allowing for the use of mandatory police officers, allowing for the use of civilian flagmen where it makes sense, and allowing for the use of police officers where there is a serious public safety issue, where it's a dangerous intersection, where there's a lot of traffic, etc. But also, we ought to be taking some of the savings realized from doing away with police details at every construction site and looking at ways to enhance police officer salaries. Because frankly, if we were to do away with flagmen across the board, it would make a huge hit to the take-home pay of thousands of police officers across the Commonwealth in a way that, you know, that the rhetoric doesn't recognize, but it's a very real impact. And I have several police officer friends, state trooper friends, and we've talked about this, and they understand why it bothers people, but they also have legitimate issues of their own that need to be considered.
Yeah, what people really don't realize that when a police officer's out doing a road detail that in like the city of Boston last year, it's the contractors that pay the money. And the city, they have a 10% administrative fee. The city of Boston alone collected $2 billion in administrative fees. And these administrative fees for towns that, some towns like Framingham probably collect, you know, $300,000 or $400,000. The town of Hopkinton like $30,000 or $40,000. This is revenue coming into the town. And also, like in high crime areas in Boston, Brockton, when you have a police officer out doing the detail, the crime rate seems to be much, much lower. So I support the police officers and the safety of the communities on this issue.
Carolyn.
I think that the measures that are being taken now are sensible. I think they make sense. I think they have been proposed in a way that protects public safety, which I think has to be the priority here. This gets back to the issue. Again, I think the proposal absolutely makes sense. One of the things we need to look at going forward, and I will agree with Dan on this one, is that, and it goes to comments I mentioned earlier about, needing to retain high-quality people for our state and municipalities and paying them in a way that's fair. So, considering that some of these funds have been sort of factored into their benefits package, so to speak, I think, going forward as a state, we will need to look at what's a fair salary to pay as opposed to, relying on details.
I have time for one more question, if you can give us a short answer, 1 minute response on this one, if possible. Paul Escoco, who has been representing this district, has been a great advocate for the 495 Corridor Partnership, also known as the Arc of Innovation, please state your position regarding the Arc as it relates to political clout and the current business climate. And we will start with Anna.
Well, 8 years ago, I ran against Paul Escopo for the state representative's race, and Paul has done a wonderful and great job. And I know that he has worked tremendously hard in the I-495 and the Arc of Innovation, and I will follow the direction that he has followed as your next state representative. And I look at my opponents, and Dan Haley says he's a friend of Paul's, but Dan, I feel, is no Paul Escopo. And I wish and hope and feel that I am the next person in the primary race, because I am looking forward to running against Dan, and I hope Dan is on time and on budget. Thank you.
Carolyn?
I think the 495 Partnership is a great organization. I think it's very active. I think they've been a loud voice on a lot of the issues that we need to think about as a region. We talked earlier about strength in numbers and needing to go to the State House and help them understand the need to focus on MetroWest and to take MetroWest seriously. I think that group is a perfect example of the types of groups that need to get together with legislators, with MetroWest Chamber, to go to the state en bloc, so to speak, and lay out a plan for moving forward and help them understand our needs out here and get resources based on that.
Rick, I think I already answered this question earlier when I mentioned the 495 partnership. It's a tremendous organization. It's done a fantastic job. It's grown exponentially over the last few years. And why does it succeed? Well, it succeeds for exactly the inverse reason why the legislature right now is failing. You've got all voices in that organization. You've got legislators, you've got business interests, you've got conservative Republicans, you've got liberal Democrats, and they're working together. There's debate, there's discussion, all points of views are expressed, and they work together towards consensus to move our region forward with all of the strengths that we have. It's a great organization, and I will absolutely be a champion of that organization, as Paul has been. Let's respond quickly to Ed. Paul Escoco thinks I'm the next Paul Escoco, so I don't know whether Ed's opinion has more than that, more weight than that. But I look forward to the general election. It doesn't matter to me which of my opponents I run against. My perspective is very different from each of theirs, and their perspective is already more than well represented on Beacon Hill. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, and let's thank all of our for attending. No.